right when you were like, "Oh, I'm recording," I was like, "Oh shit, I just hit the button."
So, hello, everybody. We are on another episode of the Moving Out podcast, and we are with my guest, Andrew. I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell us everything you know about your area, including with where you're from.
Right on, man. Thanks. So I'm from a little town called Fort Walton Beach, Florida. It's right next to Destin, Florida, which is a pretty popular tourist spot. It's located right between Pensacola, Panama City Beach, and we basically service everything in that area from Pensacola to Panama City, and of course everything in between.
So, what is your area best known for? I mean, everyone knows Florida is where you go for weather, but your area specifically, one thing I didn't know is that you're in a different time zone. Right. I don't think anybody realizes that Florida encompasses 2 time zones. So that's probably the first thing to cover. And then after that, what's another special part?
Yeah. The time zone catches a lot of people off. I'm always having to be like, wait, is that Central or Eastern? And they're always like, you're in Florida, it's Eastern. We're actually in Central. So like the Panhandle kind of cuts that off, and then that's where Central is. The biggest thing we are known for, I think, is our beaches. Obviously, it's Florida, right? Like that's what a lot of Floridian towns are known for. Ours in particular, because we've got the Gulf of Mexico, we've got the type of sand that comes in from the Appalachian Mountains, makes it like super powder and white. Like our white sands are probably like the number one thing most people know us for. It's unbelievable how bleach white they are. It's absolutely amazing. And of course, the water is great too. I mean, you're getting waters from the Gulf of Mexico. It's nice and warm. You're not getting crazy waves or anything like that. So if you're coming here to surf or something, you can. It's just not going to be everything that you hope for, maybe. But the actual beaches themselves are gorgeous.
That's awesome. Yeah, so the beaches are awesome. Maybe not the perfect place to go surfing. What about fishing, though?
Yeah, fishing's huge out here. So Destin, Florida, which is probably one of our main towns that we sell in, is actually known as the world's luckiest fishing village. So it was one of the biggest fishing villages in Florida when we first came here. In fact, we're right down the road from where we first landed in this country. So it's been like this for a while, and Destin's been growing and stuff like that. But fishing is absolutely huge out here. Don't ask me like too many details on that because I'm not a fisherman myself. But it is. I mean, we have fleets and fleets of boats out here. It's insane.
Yeah, that's one thing you and I do have in common. We both come from areas that are known for fishing, and Billy Joel sings The Fisherman and Down Eastern Alexa and so many songs about being a fisherman on Long Island, and I can't stand the whole process of waiting. I just rather go down to the market and order some fish tacos.
Yeah.
So water sports, you got those down there. How are jobs, right? Like say someone wants to come down here in New York. One thing that everyone forgets about Florida is you don't have state income tax, right? So a lot of people want to come down there for work. Do they have jobs in your area available if somebody wanted to make a transfer?
Yeah, we've got an extremely high, oh man, I can't think of the word right now, but where people come in and out. So a lot of people come in and out. A lot of it's due to the military. We've got 4 major military bases around us, technically 6, if you look at the whole scope of where we're from. But the main areas we serve have 3 big ones, 4 big ones, something like that. So there's a lot of jobs there, and then in the sectors supporting those as well. So if you're looking for defense contracting or to work for the government in some sort of facet, there's a lot of different avenues that way. And then I think our third largest one is, of course, the service industry. It's a tourist town. Some of our like bartenders, waitresses, you kind of look at that and you're like, oh, well, that's not going to be a high paying job. Like some of them out here are extremely well paying, just because it's a heavy tourist area.
I can imagine. We just saw each other not long ago over in Nashville, and I was thinking the same thing there. I'm saying to myself, Nashville bartenders probably do pretty damn well. I know I tipped mine pretty handsomely. So that's actually really good to know. I didn't know that about the military bases. That's actually interesting. So you probably get a lot of turnover as far as people moving in, moving out. So that's great, especially for real estate too. So if you want a real estate job, I'm sure got more than enough things to do down there as far as keeping busy. So some of the questions that we get from people always are like, what is the general cost of living? One thing that Long Island is plagued with is extremely high property taxes. And everyone's always shocked to find out that our average property taxes is usually around $12,000 annually. Yeah, yeah, and that's on your average, 2,000 square foot ranch, 3 beds, 2.5 baths. You can find cheaper. Like, everyone's always coming at me for that statement and saying, oh, we got houses with 8. We have some houses with 8. But when we're bragging about 8,000 being the low, there's a problem when you look at the rest of the country. And Texas and California are up there too. But what about property taxes, cost of living down where you are in your area?
Yeah, that's definitely a lot higher than I would have expected too. A lot of people are really surprised when it comes to taxes when they move down here, how low they actually are when it comes to property taxes. I own a few properties myself, and I don't think any of them are over $2,000 a year. I could
Nice.
be mistaken there. If they are floating above that, it's like barely scratching it. And those are 15 to 2,500 square foot homes, like nothing too crazy, median price points. So that's kind of what you can expect out here. Our insurance, on the other hand, is still lower than a lot of other states.
Okay.
But I'm going to put that with a big comma of, but definitely not the lowest, because we have a lot of problems with not insurance scams, but insurance claims out here. If you look at the rate of insurance claims in Florida versus any other state, it's something like 5 times higher or something like that. So we're currently going through this like weird transition phase for the last 2 years of insurance companies kind of slowly raising their rate, and some of them are dropping people, and then people are having to switch because we lost like 50 companies roughly that
Oh, wow.
won't insure in the state anymore just because of all the hurricanes and everything. It wipes out an area, and it causes some damage to their pocketbooks. So I can't blame them.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine that. So on that note, you know, hurricanes, you had an awesome YouTube video about the downsides to living in Florida. You almost talked me out of it, and then I remembered there was no state income tax, and property taxes are a quarter of what we pay, and you could throw hurricanes and flying sharks at me and I'm still going to go and chance it probably. So what are some of the downsides, right? You got the hurricanes. Do you have a lot of traffic in your area? I know down in Miami where Brickell is, people are constantly saying, like, if you move to Brickell, it's like mini Manhattan right now. Like, you will sit in god awful amounts of traffic. Can you get about pretty easy?
In the grand scheme of things, compared to most areas, yes. To people that live here, you would think we were in Los Angeles rush hour traffic every day. Some people lose their minds. They're like, oh, my 15-minute drive is now 23 minutes. There are certain periods of time, depending on where you're driving, that you're going to hit traffic, right? Whenever one of the bases are letting out, in particular Hurlburt Field out here in Fort Walton, if you're heading east, or I guess west on your way home or east on your way in the morning, there's going to be a little bit of traffic there, but it's really, in the grand scheme of things, it's extremely nominal. Like, I don't think I hit traffic that often. Now, then you go into Destin during tourist season, and it's just hit or miss, right? Like, there are going to be certain times where it's really packed, especially if like the Blue Angels are doing something, or if, there's just some sort of event, and it can get bad. My worst drive was like 2 hours for about 8 miles.
Oh, wow.
But that was one time I've lived here 17 years, and
Okay.
as a real estate agent for the last 8 or 9,
Yeah.
constantly going back and forth. And that's the one time I can think of.
All right.
So sometimes it gets bad, but it's,
Fair enough. So what are the average price points of homes near you? Obviously, this last couple of years was great for home prices across America. I'm sure yours went up as well. Can you still get an affordable house?
Yeah. We're currently, so on my team personally, we're sitting at 339,000 as of earlier this year. I haven't looked at it in about 3 months, so it's probably bumped up a little bit. And I would say that's probably right on par for our area. Now, each city, of course, is different, because we do have things like, we've got 30A out here, which is a very ritzy sort of like vacation tourist spot. And then there's like little beaches inside of there, like Alice Beach. I think their average price point is like 3.5 million or something. So there
Wow.
are higher areas, but then, we also have places like Crestview where the average price is like 280. So, just kind of varies on which city in our area you're going for.
That's awesome. So if, aside from the beaches, what's the entertainment value like? What do you have generally to do, fishing and stuff, and what else? What do you got?
Yeah, so obviously the fishing, the water stuff in general. So, the little paragliding thing or whatever they call it, jumping on a jet ski, renting a boat. I mean, literally at any point, I could just call up one of these boat places and be like, cool, get me on a pontoon, $400, and 30 minutes later, I'm on a boat, So that's a big portion of it. One of the biggest things that a lot of people know us for is an area called Crab Island. Okay, so it's like right next to Destin, Florida. It's a sandbar. Basically, the Army Air Corps just took a bunch of sand out of the area to make a pass, and they dropped it in this area, and it created an island. Okay, and about 30, 40 years ago, it was washed away. Now it's a sandbar. So it sits like, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet under the water.
Okay.
And everybody just goes there to party. There's floating bars. There's like music. Like everybody's having a good time. Like it's
Wow.
just crazy, crazy good time. And it's packed just about any time of the year until it starts getting pretty cold. And then you'll see a few yachts out there, but that's about it.
Wow. That's awesome. That's really cool. We got something kind of similar over in Port Jeff, but definitely not 2 to 3 feet of walkable. It's you got to take your boat and transfer from another boat. It's a little bit of a process. But yes, so that's really cool. What would you say is different about buying a house in Florida? You said you owned a couple of properties. Is that for investment purposes? Would you say for investors watching, Florida is a good spot to pick up an investment property or two? What's the rentals like?
Yeah, so it depends on what you're looking for. I personally own 54 doors, but they're not all here. Only about 4 of them are here in the area. With rentals, some of our biggest money makers are the short-term rentals, right? So because we're in a tourist town, they're extremely popular out here. Now, in the last like year or two, like the cap rate, the percentage that you're getting for what you're paying has gone down as prices have gone up. The rentals haven't quite caught up, but that's the big thing. There's so many condos out here or houses, and some of them cash flow like you wouldn't believe. So that's like a really, really big thing out here.
Very cool. Very cool. So the process to buying a house, I know that if you're coming from New York, one thing that we have to do here is we have to use attorneys in order to buy a house here, outside of real estate agents, obviously. But you need an attorney to prepare real estate contracts. You need an attorney to help get to you closing. Do you need an attorney to buy a house in your area?
No, we do look for them in our title companies whenever whoever we're partnering with as a team. That's very important to me because if you do have a dispute or something, you want somebody to be able to step in. But for the most part, it's all done through the agents. The agents write up the contracts. They even add the additional stuff to it if you're writing it in. I know like some states they're like, if you just use a contract, you're fine. But if you add anything to it, you need a lawyer.
Yeah.
We're not really like that unless the language is getting complicated.
Okay.
And then it's a standard process like anything else. It's 25 to 35 day period, depending on the type of loan and what you're purchasing. And then if you're purchasing like condos or something like that, there's a whole nother side thing that you really got to make sure that you're getting with a good agent that can get you with the right lender if you're needing to do that, because we have like condo tells and non-warrantable condos, warranted condos, and not any lender can do those.
Interesting. We have, up here, we come across a couple of, they're not modular, and they're not mobile.
Yeah.
But they are this hybrid in between the two, almost like a PUD, and it's weird because you can't get loans on all these properties. You got to go to specific banks. So that's interesting to see that you have something very similar going on. What would you say that buyers should be weary of, right? You're moving in from out of state. You might not be lucky enough to call Andrew first, which you should if you are, but if you're moving to his area and you call the wrong agent, what should people be leery of buying a house in Florida that you might not think of coming from out of state that you really should know? I know some areas radon is a big thing that most people don't know you have to test for. What would you say the big ticket item is by you?
Oh man, I would say probably wood rot is pretty prevalent out here. And it's something that because we deal with so many VA borrowers, you have to get fixed on those types of loans. So that's a big one. And with that comes other issues that can come up, like roofs. For instance, we've got one under contract right now that the wood rot has gone up into the rafters and just really torn it up. And so even though it's a newer roof, it's got to get replaced. It's a 10-year-old roof. It should last 20, 25 years, but we had to get it replaced because it was that bad. So that kind of stuff can spread quickly. And that's something that a lot of people, if you're living in the same house for 10 years, sometimes you're not noticing, right? Because it's so gradual.
Yeah, that's solid advice. Definitely get a solid home inspector. I'm sure you have one, crawls through it really well. Do you deal with termites down there? You got a lot of moisture down there also, right? And no basements down there either, right? In your area?
Yeah, no basements, lots of moisture. So termites are a big thing. I've seen them chew up a whole house.
Yeah.
So yeah, termites are definitely a big thing. And we even have, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we even got that crossbreed from Texas. I probably know too much about termites, but they're called Formosans. They're monsters, right? They'll eat a 2x4 in about a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. They came from some place in Mexico, from what I heard, but came through Texas, and then it's been kind of shifting our direction. So we have those, and I've seen the damage, and it's extensive and it's fast, but it's like so rare that you're going to see those. Like we have these termite waves come in, and you'll actually see it like on Facebook. People are like, don't go outside, the termites are out. And you'll just see these little bugs flying around. That's what they are.
Oh my
But
gosh.
90% of the time, you're not going to have any issues with them. Most people get termite bombs out here just to be safe, and they'll eat the bait, and they won't touch the house.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, like 3 summers ago, they were actually eating the vinyl liner to my pool.
Oh, geez.
Because like apparently they were looking for a water source of some kind and finding it and dying, obviously. But then I installed like 15 bait traps around the in-ground pool, and two summers of them being empty, and the guy was still trying to sell me on putting them back. I'm like, I think it was a freak event, man. Like I think they came, they saw, they died, and they just didn't want to do it again. But
Yep.
it's always interesting to me when you hear things that termites will do. And the same thing with like bamboo was something I learned in real estate, like is not a nice thing to have around the property. Bamboo shoots underground, they can penetrate cesspools, foundations, your swimming pool. Like as cool as it looks, like bamboo will mess your property up pretty quick. I thought that was just interesting.
Yeah.
No state income tax, cheap property taxes, affordable housing, good weather all year round. I still can't figure out why the rest of the United States exists. Like it should just be Florida. What type of what type of food is your area known for? What's the go-to? Like if I'm going to come down there, the first thing I should look for, what is it?
I think it's got to be our seafood.
Okay.
And I fought it for so long. I wasn't a big seafood guy until literally maybe like a year ago. And I picked up some redfish at a restaurant, and I've been hooked ever since. I eat it like 3 times a week now.
Really?
Oh yeah, I don't know what it is about redfish, but that exact fish, I just love it. But it's so ridiculously fresh. Like that's the crazy part is this isn't going to Red Lobster in Texas. You know what I mean? Like you're getting it, you're watching them. There's certain restaurants here because we get all of our stuff from the fleets in Destin that you'll actually watch them take the fish off of the boat, and that's what they're cooking right away. They're not throwing this in the freezer. Most restaurants aren't anyway. They're not throwing it in the freezer. They're literally throwing it out for the chef right there in full fish form, scaling it outside, like,
Wow.
and you're getting the freshest fish. So whether you like, a deep fried sandwich, or you want some grade A sushi, like you're getting it directly from the Gulf of Mexico. And then our shrimp are like, I don't know, they're like baseball bats. It's insane.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. I was just actually thinking, so is there anything that somebody should know? Let's say they want to come down there and buy a waterfront property. Like what would waterfront run them if they wanted to live, let's say on the Gulf versus maybe like a lake or something like that? Like what are the options with that?
So it just kind of depends on where you're at and what you're looking for. So, real quick, like just getting on a lake or something, you can probably do that at 300,000. It'll
Okay.
be a dated home sort of thing, 3 bed, 2 bath, ranch style, and then of course it'll get nicer as you scale up, right? You want to get on the Sound, and it's a little bit cheaper. So the Sound, there's this area, barrier island between us and where America starts, right?
Okay.
And that area is called the Sound. It's where
Okay.
a lot of ships come in and out. Anyway, you want to get on that. That's a lot cheaper. You can generally start seeing properties sitting on the Sound at like 800,000 to $1 million. You want to get on the Gulf of Mexico. You can do that much cheaper if you're okay with a condo. You can get a condo at 200,000 right on the Gulf, and you
Oh,
can
wow.
also do that on the Sound for a condo too. I guess I should emphasize that.
Okay.
But you want to get a 3 bedroom, 2 bath home on the actual Gulf of Mexico with your own little private beach area with our beautiful white sands. I think the cheapest I've seen it all year was like 1.2 million, and it was pretty like it needed some work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can start seeing livable things like move-in ready probably at about 1.6 million.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Honestly, that's not as bad as I thought you were going to hit me with it. I'm saying to myself, like, he's going to hit me with like a 2 something, to live on the Gulf. So yeah, so that's pretty affordable. And I would assume that property taxes are probably not $40,000 on that, right?
No, you can expect up in the millions, maybe like 6,000 to 8,000, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
But again, it just depends on what the millage rate is for the city that you're at, because each city is a little bit different.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, it's on a house up here that touches the water, especially on the North Shore. Like, it's not uncommon for the taxes to start about 26,000 and work their
Oh,
way up.
jeez.
When I just saw a property list where the price of the house asking right now is like 11.8, and I think the property taxes are $48,000 a year. And I looked at that and I'm like, if that guy does not walk into the local school district and say, I do pay your salary directly, you're going to pass my child today. It's pretty eye opening when you see just how much taxes people fork over for their property here in New York. And it makes sense as a business owner, and why so many businesses move to Florida with the incentives that they offer and things like that. If you want a nice house and you want to live on the water, you don't have to go through what you go through here on Long Island. And I think that's why we have such a high move out rate that has started to happen, especially since remote working has gone popular and people realize that you don't actually need to live in the state that you're working in. And that's actually what sparked this entire podcast. Is there anything that you want to cover specifically about Florida that we haven't covered today?
I mean, nothing specific. It's fun. The military moved me here when I was, 19 or something like that. And once I left, like, I couldn't leave. It's so beautiful. If you see our beaches, you actually experience them. I've been all over the world, some of the most beautiful beaches that you see, on video or on Facebook or wherever else. And our beaches smoke it like 9 times out of 10. In fact, I was on a vacation not too long ago and with one of my buddies, and he's like, "This is amazing. This beach is beautiful." And I was like, like, I think that's the big thing for us. It's just, it's absolutely gorgeous, and there's so much to do. It's a good area.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely have to make my way down there. I can say I've been a lot of places, and the Gulf side is not one of them. Florida a couple of times too. Usually Disney with the kids to hate life for a little bit, but
I get to do that next week. I can't wait.
Oh yeah. Thank God Disney got really open with the alcohol policy. They're like, "You want another beer? Well, you're online because we'll get it for you." They go out of their way to keep you happy now.
That's good.
That's awesome. So the military brought you there. That's interesting. We'll have to we'll cover that more in episode 2. My biggest takeaway always when we're doing these is that there are so many options. If you want to move out of New York, if you want to get out of the state that you're living in right now, and to hear something refreshing, like the cost of living is affordable, there are jobs available, the houses are there if you want to buy them. You can get a lifestyle that is fun. You can get weather year round that doesn't require the need to own a snow shovel, which I still can't figure out why we choose to live here. But for the most part, I can say that after watching your YouTube videos also, and if you haven't, head on over to Andrew's channel and take a look at just what he did with, the beaches alone. You can take a look and see, like, he's covered his beaches, he's covered some food. I almost had to move there based on his content. So everyone go over there and click a like and a subscribe for him and watch his, everything you need to know about the Emerald Coast. So obviously it was a pleasure having you here with us today. And we can't wait to have you back with an update on your market. How's it selling quickly right now? Is it over asking and everything, or is it kind of simmered down a little bit that people can kind of come in and get the deal that they're looking for?
Yeah, it's cooled off a little bit. So people that are coming in now, you can expect, you might get a little bit off list price if they're not priced appropriately. A lot of our agents aren't pricing the way they should be right now when things are cooling off. But you are seeing a little bit off the top. So buyers are starting to win a little bit. Sellers are still doing good. So it's kind of a nice, it's actually a really good middle ground for us, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. Prices are still up, and buyers don't have to fight someone fist fight to get the house that they want. Yep. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming out with us today. And if anybody needs anything, where do they find you?
Well, if you're looking for our YouTube channel, it's Life on the Emerald Coast. And then, of course, you can search my name anywhere and you can find any of our stuff.
Perfect. Thanks, man. We really appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, man. Thanks. See ya.
Bye.